I just finished a consulting call with Ed, who's the sales manager for one of our consulting clients that keeps hitting record months. And he asked me how he can become fully confident in his management skills, which is the question you've never asked yourself as a business owner. You've never asked because if you have sets or closes, you don't actually know what you're doing. You're just winging the management. So in the call, I break down 3 advanced pillars of management that separate managers that stay stuck and managers that actually scale. Watch what happens.
What do you think I need to improve on in order to be in a position where I can truly just have full conviction in my set of management as a whole?
Yeah, so as a manager, after you get to the point of like, I'm comfortable, I know what I need to do in terms of fixing bottlenecks.
The biggest thing that I think people don't understand how to do it, or at least they don't understand how to do it well enough, is actually developing their people skills. What I mean by that is like being able to read the people on their team so that they can, I don't want to say change the management that is executed based on the person, but I would say adapt it is a better word for me to use. Because that is an insanely important thing, in my opinion, as a manager, is being able to read the personality and the personality type of the people on your team to then better know how to manage those people, better know how to communicate with them. Whether it's in a good time where you really need to start pushing, you now know how to motivate them correctly, or it's in a bad time where the offer's dropped and you have a bad month, knowing how to communicate them in a way where you show that you're there to support them and that it's part of business and that you guys will get through this so that they don't churn. I think all of these things are very, very important because if we look at everything that we've spoken about in terms of management,
the core of management is understanding the person that you are managing. Because we say, oh, we manage systems and all these type of things, but like the system doesn't run without the person. You don't have a system without the person to execute the system. Therefore, is the quality of your setting process actually the quality of like the system you've built, or is it the quality of the management of the person that you have that's executing the system, if that makes sense, right?
Exactly. So is it the quality of the actual like management of the person specifically, or the quality of the management of the systems?
Yeah. Well, in terms of when I say system, I mean the overall process. I don't mean like
Yeah, of course.
the go high level or something like that, or the category. I'm talking about like, because a lot of people look at it as, oh, my setting process is very, very good. But then what is your actual setting process? Unless it's done by AI, if it's done by a person.
the quality of your setting process is dictated by how well your setter executes it. Therefore, it's dependent on the setter, on a human being. Because if he doesn't execute it correctly or at a high standard, you don't have a setting process that is at a high standard. Very simply put, right? Therefore, my point was, at the core of management, if you're managing humans, the actual core essence of management is you managing people, as opposed to like the system overall, if that makes sense. My whole point is the importance of reading people and people skills, because you're actually just managing people, and then based on how you manage them, that dictates the quality of execution of the process and the system that you've built. And all the tasks, and like this is the framework, this is how you do it, this is the training, this is the post-booking process, this is a checklist, this is what you do first, second, third.
Does that all make sense? Any questions on that?
No, that's good. That's good.
That's kind of a big thing that I think we can go through. And I think it's good for you at this point in management, since you're getting more comfortable with all the day-to-day things.
Yeah.
For you to start being a lot more conscious of that, especially as the teams that you have under management start growing. Whether that's Daniel's team, you get on more setters, whether that's B2B clients, whatever it is very, very important for you to be able to adapt the way you manage people. Now, my management style basically stays the same no matter which team I'm managing. I can still be very direct and call people out and ego check people when I need to, but then I'm also like, I'm not just like very direct all the time to where they feel like they don't even want to talk to me, and they feel like that, like, that's like gut pain whenever someone messages you and you're like, fuck, like I hate this person.
Yeah.
Right? They don't feel that, or at least I hope they don't. That's in a sense my management style, and in my opinion, it works very well for the teams that I've managed. I don't change that no matter who I manage. However, I look at it as a dial. What would be a good way to describe like the friendship aspect, or like how genuine you are?
Or
that would be a good word, right? Let's just say how relatable you are. You have one dial, which is the relatability knob, let's just call it that. And then you have one dial, which is the very direct, why haven't you done this? Why are we not booking call? Like that type of language, right? Those are the 2 dials.
The way I view how you can build your management, or like when I look at a management style, it's basically just those 2 knobs. Some people only have like 5% of the genuine one or the relatability one, and like 95% of the other one. Other people have it completely the other way around. Both of those, in my opinion, aren't really very good managers. I do feel like you need to have a balance. Obviously, it needs to be, in my opinion, like the best balance is probably between 60-40 and like 70-30. Somewhere within that range, where majority is being a little bit more direct. Because I would rather have that authority and respect than being their friend and only relying on being their friend for them to do their job, because that's not a business.
Any questions on that before I go into like how you can adapt it based on the person that you're managing?
No, all good. Perfect.
Okay. What I mean by you being able to read the people that you're managing and then adapt your management style is that, let's just say my management style is 60% direct and then 40% of the genuine or like relatable knobs. If I've then read that on this specific team, there's one setter that has a pretty high ego, which is then making him perform at a lower standard because he's becoming complacent because of the ego. Because now that his ego is so high, he feels like that he's the man and he can't improve at anything. And if you feel like you can't improve at anything, you get complacent. If I see that, all I'm doing, if I'm at a 60-40, I'm now going up to maybe a 75 and then and a 25. I'm adapting it to him in certain situations. Maybe on just on 2 team calls, on 2 training calls, I'm going to be like that towards him so that I can get his ego or like ego check him a couple times so that he can actually get out of his own way, start implementing feedback, start progressing, and start making more money, which is in his best interest. But then for everyone else in the team, if I don't really have any problems with them, I'm still at a 60-40 because that's my management style. Does that make sense in terms of like that example, how you need to be able to adapt those 2 knobs based on who you are talking to and based on who you're managing, which starts from you being able to read them as people as well, and then make adjustments based with that.
So like I remember watching the first call with Nate, and you came on like immediately. You weren't like crazy. Well, I thought you were pretty authoritative, to be fair. But like you have to be on the first call to just set the tone, though.
Well, the similar thing. I was probably 85 or 90% like direct on that call. But I was like that because of the context that I had before going on that call,
Yeah.
where you guys told me
Yeah.
about the ego and the things like that.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that context, I would have gone on at 60-40,
Yeah.
maybe 65-35,
Yeah, but you had so much evidence that you knew exactly the way you needed to approach it.
right? And then did it help,
Yeah, 100%.
right? So it's like that's actually a perfect example. It's good that you brought that up. That's a perfect example of how I'm able to adapt it. Because if I now get on a call with Nayan, I will talk to him in a very different way than I talked to him
Yeah.
back then, you know? Any questions on that in terms of like different scenarios where you have to adapt it? Like the main thing is you being able to understand the importance of doing that, because that's like all of the things that I feel like we've gone over on the previous consulting calls. I don't want to say they were the basics, but they were like the macro viewpoint. I feel like we've touched every aspect of management more or less. We've gone in detail in like the setting. We've also gone into like overall the bottlenecks and things like that. These are more so things very specific to your question where it's like, what else do you feel like I should know to be a good manager? These are like one of the more advanced things that do make very good managers, especially if you're then going to go on and manage teams where there's more than one setter. Even if there's one setter, you still need to be able to read this person. But I hope you see the importance of being able to do this. Let me know if you want me to give more examples or you want to share your thoughts.
Yeah, it's just really like identifying the type of person they are and currently where they're at within their setting journey. Like how, so as you were saying, right, it's like for Nayan, he was kind of the example you would use in the sense of he had ego, he got complacent, he thought he was the best setter. Therefore, like if he was in a team of 4, but all the other 3 setters were like, you know, doing good and they didn't have ego, I would just keep my management style the same with them, but I'd obviously change it to name, be more authoritative, make sure that that ego's gone, and then just return back to original state of like style of management.
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't realize when you manage sales teams, you're borderline a therapist sometimes, though. Like you're borderline having like those type of talks with setters, closers, whoever you're managing sometimes. I actually do think closers are more emotional than setters because they're more involved with the people, especially DM setters. Because like DM setters, they don't really talk to them. Like it's text, bro. There's no emotion really behind that. Whereas closers, they've spent an hour and a half where 30 minutes of that was objection handling. They've gone through all of this person's like the entire life story and they've listened to all the shit that's currently going on in this person's life and then they don't close.
Yeah.
And like then the closer has a bad week, which a bad week is basically just a compilation of that happening.
Yeah.
Like that has to wear on you as a person. So like with closers, eventually, if that's the goal to go on and like also manage closers, I will say the thing that we just spoke about gets amplified when you're then managing closes.
Yeah,
If you have to do it way more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. I agree.
Things like that are very important. So for you, an actionable that you can take from it is just being more conscious. And I think there's just a good skill set overall for everyone to be conscious about, no matter whether it's just managing sales teams or like business relationships or just people in general. Is being just consciously working on that muscle of being able to read people. Do they have a high ego? Are they maybe on the flip side? Are they maybe insecure and need a lot of reassurance and need a lot of support? So then you're doubling down, or you're taking a note in your mind that when this guy gets a sale, when he has a day where he books 10 qualified calls, I need to really give him that reassurance and really hype him up, because I know that maybe he's a little bit more on the insecure side, and then I need to bump up his confidence as opposed to ego checking them. It's like the flip side, right? It goes both ways. Things like that I think is very important. Especially if you see, and this is a big thing, especially if you see that they are very good long-term fit, but they just have some of these things that are holding them back. You can see that he's an amazing culture fit and a very good long-term fit, and he has good mentality. However, he just needs to be ego checked. Or, bro, this guy works so hard, he communicates very well, but he's just a little bit insecure, which then the insecurity then leads into having a lack of conviction when he's executing something, which means there's hesitation, which means a lack of results. So if you can just give him that confidence, he'll execute, and he already has all these other good traits: the communication, the work ethic. It's in these type of examples where it really can be used for you to build a team that not only stays with you long term. The last thing I'll say
is also, if you can help someone go through that, where it's like, oh, I'm insecure, and now Ed helped me become confident, or I had a massive ego and Ed ego checked me, and now I see how important that was for me because I felt like I was capped, and then I realized I wasn't. If you can help them go get past that, that like goes past just you being their manager almost. That's like a personal thing that you've helped them unlock within their life. And that's where it's like, okay, I wanna stay, or like I want to be managed by Ed for as long as I'm a setter. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to another manager. I'm not going on another offer. I'm not like, things like that really do make an impact in the relationship that you have with those setters, closers, whoever you're managing as well.
Any questions off the back of that, or anything you want to add?
No, that's good. I'm literally just trying to soak up as much like new knowledge as I can now, really. So like it's all super valuable. Because like I say, like I feel like we're at this point where we've touched on like each section, and like even like last one was the example of going into stuff more, like with trust and incentive, going into it way more. Like I feel like we just need to like keep adding like just different bits here and now.
Yeah, it's kind of like the outskirts of like management, all the little things that you'd need to focus on to be able to make the core stuff that you've already learned basically just amplify the effect that they have.
Yeah.
That's kind of the big thing. So like that's one of them. It's being able to read who you're managing, and then being able to adapt the knobs, not like completely change them. I'm not going from like a 10% to a 90% because that's not my management style.
Yeah.
Just tweak them slightly, 5 to 15%, to be able to adapt to the person I'm talking to so that they can have that transformation that they need, whether it's a boost in confidence or an ego check. That's one of those things. What else would be, oh, a big thing that I would say for you to focus on that will make your life easier is systemizing and documentation as a manager. It's a big one. So what I mean by that is creating SOPs on borderline everything and just documenting almost everything. Putting training on a Notion page, or like pen and paper, so to speak. Like having systems and like tangible things, in a sense, like notions and frameworks and Miro boards and video libraries, all these type of things. Because what happens is, if your goal is to manage multiple teams for a good amount of time, obviously we can also go into like what your goal is so I can contextualize the advice more. But if that's the goal, you don't want to be repeating yourself. You don't want to onboard a team today and run them through all the onboarding. This is how you fill out an EOD. This is how you do this. And then in 2 weeks' time, when you onboard another team, you have to have the same call where you're explaining the exact same thing. That's just a waste of time. Why don't we just record a Loom video on how to fill out your EOD and just send it to everyone for the rest of the time?
To be fair, like I built out like proper SOPs for pre-call framework dial and that, but like I don't have it on a Notion portal where it's like, okay, this is the management client. Go through all the videos, make sure you're all, because there will still be some videos that I know would provide value to a lot of like new setters if I'm managing them, for example. But I feel like I haven't done that as much because the offers that I manage, we just bring in sales space setters. So it's like I don't need to. but I know it's not scalable thinking like that, because there will be instances where I come into a business and I will keep the setters or hire new ones as well. So yeah.
Yeah. And it's also like
It's just better. It's more effective for sure.
it also impresses the business owner more.
So with SOPs, then what would you say? So again, there's a lot. What would you say comes underneath SOPs though?
In what sense? Like,
So
oh,
like,
like the
yeah,
SOPs.
like what are the different? So for me, it's like, well, I know I have like the overall setting process. Then within the setting process, I have like the framework. Then you have like pre-call SOP, post-booking process, like follow-up process, follow-up sequence, like after 1 day, after two, like round robin links, booking links, EOD form. But it's like, is there any other, like, how would you section the topics for each SOP? Is what we're trying to get at.
It will probably like you'll section it off based on the SOP that you would need based on the section of the process. What I mean by that is you have like the conversational ones, which is inbound, warm, outbound, freebie in most cases. Those are like the three main ones for like the actual conversations themselves. Then you'll move into post booking. Now, post booking can also be split up into multiple ones, but like you'll have post booking that can get split up on its own. You'll then have post booking. After that, you'll have like a no-show SOP because it's basically like looking at the different actions that happen. So it's like you have a conversation, you need to book them in. After you book them in, you need a post booking. After they have the call or were supposed to have the call, what are the outcomes? Either a no-show, so you need a no-show SOP, or or a reschedule.
Reschedule, yeah.
So then it's like reschedule SOPs and like reactivation SOPs, things like that. You also want a no close SOP because that's another outcome.
Yeah,
right?
would
So
you
like,
get like, so a no close SOP would be like setter reviews the conversation, sends loom breakdown to setter manager on what they think went wrong in the conversation or why it didn't close, or then like
yes, but there's still something that the setter can do. If there's a closing, what I'd recommend is that the setter sends the lead a message on Instagram acting as Daniel, the business owner, saying, "Hey, how did your call with insert closer's name go?"
yeah, I always get yeah. That's something I always
Right?
used to do as well anyway.
Yeah. So it's like that would technically be the SOP because like the SOP is you want to first create SOPs based on what they're sending to the lead to try to get them back on a call and like increase chances of them buying. You could also have like a communications SOP that's then broken up into all of the sections. What I mean by that is you don't want to confuse the setup by having instructions on what they need to say to the lead and what they need to say to the team and managers and like business owners, closers, whatever, in really the same SOP. You can, but it needs to be like structured the right way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I would rather like have it so that it's you can probably have it in the same place somewhere in a Notion so they can easily access it. But you want to split it up because if you try to put all of those things in one SOP and you actually want to give them clarity on what they need to do, there's going to be so much information they're going to get overwhelmed. Because if it's just one page, bro, they're like, where the hell am I supposed to go? So what you can have is like a Notion with all the SOPs that go horizontally, and then it's like setter or like lead no-show SOP, and then like communication no-show SOP. Then the lead one is like what the setter is messaging the lead if they no-show. And then the communication one is what the setter is messaging the closer or the rest of the team if a no-show happens.
Okay. So the communications SOPs are basically what the setter should be also like speaking to the team about if the certain whatever the outcome is from the specific SOP, basically.
Yes. The reason I'll say this is because if there aren't
very clear expectations and training done in terms of the communication from the setter to the closer, from the setter to the manager, from the setter to the business owner, from whatever. When that team starts growing, those inefficiencies don't go away. They actually just expand and become worse. Because now you have two setters that aren't communicating. Now you have three setters and two closers that aren't communicating. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. So the same way we give them SOPs for what to say to the lead is the same way you want to give them training and expectations on what they need to say to the entire team based on what happens in the process.
Things like that. So that was kind of like systemizing and documenting things because it just gives so much clarity. And then the other benefit to kind of wrap up this section is you will be able to keep your setters or anyone that you manage way more accountable if you're keeping them accountable on a documented process. What I mean by that is there's no excuse for you not to do something if it's on the SOP. Why are you not? It's there. It's on an SOP. Whereas I don't have a lot of leverage to keep someone accountable if it's not documented. oh, I told you 5 training calls ago that this is how you were supposed to do it. It's like now you're really relying on the setter to have taken notes and like created his own
Yeah,
SOPs.
for
Then
sure.
what's the point of you as a manager if you're not the one creating SOP, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, but you see how if there's a proven checklist of the post booking process, step one, you qualify or you confirm budget. Step two, you start post booking. Step three, you send video. Step four, you ask like their opinion on the video. Step five, you continue post booking. The post booking combo. Step six, you send reminders, and then like if there's like step by step by step by step, what is the excuse for them not doing it? Can't be a lack of clarity because you've not only created the SOP, but you've also recorded a Loom video explaining the SOP. You've also shown screen recording examples of how it needs to be executed. So the setter not doing the post-booking process can't be due to a lack of clarity. It needs to only be a lack of whatever excuse they give you. And then you call them out for it being an excuse and then they just do it the right way and you keep them accountable.
That's good. Main takeaway is just obviously make sure you actually have preset SOPs, depending obviously on the niche as well. The actual SOPs as well, and then the communication SOP. So they communicate to the team whatever the outcome was of the desire of the specific SOP. And then if it's all documented, there's really no excuse. Plus you have data as well. So it's like it's completely foolproof as well from that in the sense of keeping them accountable as well.
Exactly. Because then it's much easier. Sometimes you do need to show them that it's their fault. So what I mean by that is if you're as the manager looking at the data as you should be, and you see a 13% dip in show rate, and you then go and look at the conversations, and you see that there's a dip in the quality of the execution of the post-booking process, now you found why there was a 13% dip in show rate.
Yeah.
And now you have all the leverage.
Because the post booking process has been systemized and documented, to keep that setter accountable as to why that happened. Because you can then very easily connect the fact that it's the setter's fault that there's a 13% dip in show rate, which means he lost out on $750 in commission because of the 3 calls that didn't close if the show rate was 13% higher. Still positioning in his best interest, but you see how there's no other option for him in that situation besides to just take accountability and improve it. That's really what you're trying to do. You're trying to borderline put them in a corner to where the only logical thing for them to say, besides them looking like an idiot, is, "Oh, that was on me. I admit it. I'll do better."
Yeah, literally.
Because if you're trying to keep them accountable and they keep giving you borderline like a closing call, they keep giving you smoke screens and excuses, and you don't get past those, they're not going to fix it. So it's just going to keep going down and down and down, or it's going to stay 13% lower than where it actually could be if you put the set in a corner.
I was low key like with Nayan. I just feel like we were always getting smoke screens and we never actually got down to the bottom of it until like we realized it's defo an ego thing, or the quality of conversation wasn't good enough. Yeah.
Another thing to just share my perspective on, you see how like with that analogy, management is all connected, bro. Everything is connected. Because if we look at like the calls so far and like the previous calls, obviously we're talking about data a lot. You look at the data, you see that there's a drop, you're immediately going to find the bottleneck within the bottleneck. If you remember that call as well, what we spoke about. Oh, you see that it's the execution of the conversations. Now we talk about like the importance of systemizing stuff. Oh, you already have the SOP, so you know that's your leverage to hold them accountable. But then what we spoke about at the start of the call, you've also analyzed the person that you're managing, and you know that it's actually an ego thing. So now you know you need to turn this dial up to be able to handle the situation, and you have the leverage, and you know like you see how everything is connected.
Yeah, if one thing's off as well, then it really messes up everything as well.
Because if you then have that bottleneck that is dropped, you have the leverage, but you don't know how to adapt here, and you actually go more friendship when you need to go more direct, you're not going to solve the problem.
No, it's just going to become the bottleneck will get worse if anything.
Right. So the big thing, like one of the most valuable pieces of advice that I can give you when it comes to management is for you you need to view management as a skill set where everything is completely connected, because it is. Like the data is connected to the training and the systems and the training are connected to the way you talk to them and the way you communicate to them and how you adapt your management style to them. And that is then connected to the bottlenecks that occur. Like everything is connected. It's not just, oh, I can just have very good tracking or just have very good training or just have very good people skills.
Yeah.
Like you need everything, because absolutely everything is connected, because you see within that triangle of like the data, tracking and clarity, the accountability and the leverage from the systems and the way that you adapt your management style to the person that you're managing. If you don't have any one of them, it's still a bottleneck. But then the bottleneck is you. It's not the setter. It's not the system. It's not. So it's like the biggest thing for you to focus on is that every single thing is connected, and you need to constantly be looking at all those things on a daily basis, which is the art of management, so to speak. It's not easy, but like over time, you do get good at it and you do become comfortable with it.
Yeah, one thing I would say is that sometimes me and Nain, we slack on our training calls in the sense of like I know that Vince has done it, and I'm very confident that Vince is going to notice something, right? But at the same time, it's like we had this big chat ages ago that I shouldn't be relying on Vincent. I should have my own management calls with him. But what I do is I text him consistently throughout the day for updates. But like, what do you think's better? Like having 3 calls a week, and plus, how often should I be speaking to him on WhatsApp / having communication? Because there's a hard thing as well is to make sure that I'm like always like communicating with him.
I do think you need to start looking at the training more and like the combos more. Because it's like, obviously, could you guys extend this consulting thing past like once it finishes after that month? Yes. But if you don't choose to do that, then it's like, okay, well, you're the one. I don't want to say you're the one training him, but you're the one that has to maintain his skill set. Because what do we say? Otherwise, the ego gets too big because he's like, oh, I've been trained by Vincent and Alex, whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
He then gets complacent, and then quality of execution goes down, which leads to bottlenecks.
Yeah.
So then it's like, how can we prevent that from happening? Well, you need to start. I would borderline recommend starting to get involved slightly from now almost. Just like a couple of videos a week, things like that, right? Because when we then potentially leave, you don't want it to be like a culture shock of like, oh, Ed is now completely now taking it over when you didn't even touch it before.
Yeah. I have been having calls and going over combos. It's just not like super regular. But now I have sales teams meeting twice a week now with the closer as well. But I think the way I'm going to structure it though is like the closer, all I need is kind of a 10-minute chat because obviously Dan is like actively training him as well. And then it's like, okay, cool, you can leave. Now me and Nate just do like half-hour of review, for example.
Yeah. One thing I'll also tell you, because you mentioned the closer, one thing that I noticed recently that I'm going to start incorporating in all of my teams is
it's not really the set of watching the sales calls and getting trained through that. It's more so I think setters can get a lot of value from talking to the closer while the closer reviews his sales call and understanding why the closer said this, or like why the closer, what was the closer's thought process in this situation. I think if setters understand closers' thought processes behind certain situations, it allows them to not rely on the framework because they understand what the lead is thinking. Because closers are very good closers, are very good at understanding what the lead is thinking to be able to then adapt what they say next based on what the lead is thinking. The highest form of setting, in my opinion, is being able to borderline do the same thing with like DM setting. Now, you might not have to really implement that because your audience isn't as sophisticated, right? But like, this is like if you really want to max out setting process and really max out names conversions and especially if the bottleneck in the business in the future stems from the leads becoming more sophisticated.
That's when I would then really start incorporating that. Because I've just noticed it where it's like on offers where the leads are more sophisticated, it really does help the sets where they're like, oh, I like the way I can explain it, very simple example is setters in most cases, if they're just relying on a framework, it's almost like they have tunnel vision. Whereas if they start understanding the closer's thought process behind leads, like everything opens up and they're like, holy shit, I see the full picture now. Which does what? It gives them so many tools in their toolbar and so many different ways that they can take the conversation because they now have a broader view of the entire situation. That would be another big thing for you to, I'm not saying you have to incorporate that immediately. It's just something to keep in your back pocket for like, oh, more sophisticated offer. Let me start doing it. And it doesn't have to be crazy. Once a week.
To be fair, like I could get Nate trying to watch one of Dan's closing calls each week. Or the training calls. And then like I think that would, because I've noticed that when I review combos now, I see words and I'm just like, boom. Like, how haven't you spotted that? And most setters don't know. Then I realize it's probably because I did, closing.
The thing I would say is I don't think you just sending Nayan the call recording is going to do much. Because if he can't see those words right now, that means he doesn't have the thought process. Therefore, how will he see the thought process when he just looks at the sales call?
Yeah, no, I mean like the actual training calls. And I think Nain is relatively good at that because he's been surrounded by Dan now for 6 months anyway. Like I think Nain can tell like the difference between a good closer and a bad closer and like certain things to pick up on. But like there's definitely areas that he could improve in as well.
That would be good. Because it also gets him brought into like the business owner as well. And it also allows them to see that the people that he's talking to in the DMs are real people with real problems, which is another thing. Because setters, and I'm guilty of this myself, you get to a point where you've messaged so many people through the DMs where you're like, bro, it's just like another lead, another conversation. It's like, oh, another conversation as opposed to another person who has a problem that needs help. Right? It's like if you can start shifting their view of like these are real people with real problems, and if they buy, they genuinely do change their life. He starts taking it a lot more seriously. Not to say he isn't now, but
Yeah,
you get how that will change his mentality.
Yeah, for sure. Detached from money, comms, focus on actually like helping people out.
Especially if he's been talking to some guy with like a very random username and he books him onto a call and then he sees like a 19-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever, talking about the problems that he has, doesn't want to work a 9 to 5, whatever. And he's like, holy shit, like any one of these people that I have in the inbox, no matter what I might think about them based on their username or whatever, like these are real people out there somewhere with real problems.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Those are the three main ones that I think would be good for you to remember as of right now. So just recap, being able to adjust and adapt your management style based on the people that you are managing and their personality. Second one would be systemizing and documenting everything so that you have leverage when you're keeping them accountable and there's no excuse for them not to execute things at a very high level. And then the third one is exactly what we went over now, which is like the setter understanding the thought process that the closer has so that they can broaden their horizon of like how many different routes they can go down potentially, as well as the benefit of them really viewing these people as real people because they are, and they're not just like usernames and conversations.